So I want everyone to know that when you have a team, when you have leadership that supports you, anything is possible. And we will do whatever it takes to make sure that our kids succeed here in Greenfield.
Hey everybody, welcome back and thanks for tuning in to Leading Through Unprecedented Times. I'm Tom Murray, your host. So excited that you're joining us yet again, and I am super excited for this episode as we go out to the West Coast to connect with Superintendent and proud to call a friend, Zandra Jo Galván. Zandra, thank you so much for joining us. Superintendent out there in California. Talk to us a little about who you are, where you're from, a little bit about your journey, and then we're going to dive in.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tom, for asking me to be part of this wonderful podcast. It's just really great and proud to highlight my district. So I'm Superintendent Zandra Jo Galván, Greenfield, California, in Monterey County, out on the Central Coast. And we've just been doing our best to navigate these unprecedented times in the pandemic. And I'm super proud to be the superintendent of this district. We're a preschool through 8th grade district with 98% of our students coming from a home at a disadvantage. 97% are Latinx and 70% are English learners. But they're doing the best that they can and thriving. So I'm super proud to be the superintendent of this district.
So let's talk about that. And I love how you beam and you radiate when you talk about your kids, your community. It's obvious that how much you just love the community that where you are, and such a key to just being a great superintendent, by the way. But let's reflect on the past year. Here we are almost coming up on the 1 year, I don't want to call it anniversary of COVID, but that March day when things started across the country shutting down, talk to us about the community that you have. What are some lessons learned over the past year? And, as the superintendent, how have you been navigating that?
Yeah, fabulous question. There's so much I want to share. So right here behind me, you see the All Means All and our lettuce fields. We're in the Salinas Valley. So rich agricultural community of farm workers and just parents that love on their kids, just like we love on them. I'm also super proud to say that I'm the product of Greenfield schools. I was a 5-year-old going to kindergarten right here in my district that I now get to lead. And so I take extra pride in the things that we put in front of our kids and extra pride in the experiences that we shape for them so that they have amazing post-secondary success. We want our kids to have options. As I mentioned earlier, 98% of our students come from a home of a disadvantage. And I was one of those kids. And so for us, just making sure that they know everything's possible. So even prior to the pandemic, this All Means All, fulfilling the Greenfield Guarantee was something that was our mission, our vision as a district. And so we have core values that are all means all. We will not let each other fail. We will take collective responsibility for the students that we serve. We will collaborate. We will embrace our community. And so all of those things were already in place when the pandemic hit. So once it hit, we just really figured out how do we bring our parents in as partners via social distancing, right? How do we make sure that our students have the one-on-one device in every single one of their homes? How do we get a school bus on every single corner of Greenfield with a hotspot that would reach every family? Like we did a Google map with addresses to pinpoint every single location of a Greenfield kid and make sure that we reach them. So I'm super proud also to say that within the first 3 weeks of school, every single student had a device. Every single student had a hotspot or a bus parked close to them. And that was within, not the beginning of this year, we did that, but on March 13th, as you mentioned, that Friday that we'll never forget when we went out and didn't realize we weren't going to see our kids on that Monday.
Yeah, and as an equity-focused organization at the Alliance for Excellent Education, where Future Ready Schools is, what you're talking about is the exact area that we work to support. And hearing your passion for that area, breaking down the barriers of, those kids are going to lose out in the pandemic. Those kids, in quotes, and how many times people have a mindset that it is exactly that, and then they become the problem. But you're somebody that grew up in that hometown. I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. But it also gives you a really unique lens on, no, these kids absolutely can. And it's all about the opportunity. And I love that all means all. Let's talk for a little bit about your teachers, because obviously, it was a shift for them as well. Talk to us in the past year, like what have you done to support teachers as they've had to shift, their thinking, their mindset to support the amazing kids in your district?
So I'm going to start with teachers, but I'm not going to stop there. We have a GSD family. I call them my staff family. I never call them employees. I never call them other than family. And so I'm going to start with our classified union, who embraced this and just did everything that they could to make sure that students were served. Our teacher family, our teachers on special assignment, our academic coaches, our classroom teachers did everything that they could to support. And our administrative management team also jumped in and dialed like just completely down to make sure that they were side by side supporting collaboratively. And so on that March 13th, on that Monday when we came back and everyone was figuring out what were we going to do, we were all on lockdown, you know, executive order came out, nobody on campus. I gave them that Monday to just take care of themselves. I said, before you do the heavy cognitive lifting, I need you to just tend to your emotional side. This is going to be a journey. It's going to be an arduous road that we're all going to navigate together. And I gave them lots of social emotional learning. Some of my great friends through the Solution Tree family, you're probably aware of, like Tina Bugrin, Ken Williams came in and just did some really simple modules with our folks. And I asked staff to call kids, call them, ask them how they're doing, check on them, ask them what they ate for breakfast. Like just check on them personally to make sure that they know that you love them and you care about them. And then after that, teachers on Tuesday came in and we were like jamming up the copy machines because we're running packets because we didn't have the devices out yet. And so all of that is just about people. And then with that, we asked them, what do you need? How can we support you as your district leadership team to help you? And they said, we need training. Like we haven't had to deal with this level of technology ever before. We have our, you know, we have our smart boards, we have our iPads, we have all these things, but we don't know Zoom. We don't know Seesaw. We don't know Near, all these, you know, companies that were knocking our door to help support us until we had partnerships with organizations like Q, who's my amazing sister, you know, Pam, who I went to high school with, you know, and is now this big CEO. And I love her because I said, we need a partnership. Like our teachers and our classified staff are asking for support. How do they navigate these systems? How do you engage students? And then we surveyed our kids. What do you need to stay engaged? And so we did simple things like buying simple things, costly things, but simple things. We bought everyone a brand new MacBook. We bought everyone a brand new iPad. We bought everyone all the bells and whistles that they needed to engage kids. And when I say engage kids, it's the simple things like snap camera, put a cat on your head, you know, do a funny little dance, like whatever it was to make sure that they wanted to show up for learning. And so we are still doing that today. Every week, every other week, we're getting technology training and professional development based on what teachers and classified staff are asking for.
Yeah, and we'll double up on the shout out to Pam Hernandez, CEO, and Q, one of our Future Ready partners there. Incredible organization. Many of you, if you're especially in California, you know who they are as well. You just mentioned SEL, and it's going to come as no surprise here. My next question, just based on anybody that's been listening for you for the first few minutes, you just radiate the human side of the work, the people side, even just how you're referring to family instead of staff in the words there. Give some advice, if you would, on how do we keep SEL front and center? You're obviously somebody that values that whole child, that pre-COVID it did as well. And I think one thing the pandemic has forced us to reprioritize, where we got away from some of that stuff, but we had to recognize, like you were saying back in March, it wasn't like the math benchmark next Tuesday. It was which kids need to eat, which kids are we worried about their safety? How do we just show them that we love them and we're going to be there for them and get through them? We reprioritized a lot. Talk to us at a time. Here we are. We're thinking about, like, are we going to have testing this year? What's the state going to decide? The accountability metrics. Many times I feel like people misalign it. As I was saying earlier with equity, it's the mindset issue. Well, they'll look at it and they'll say, like, we don't have time for all that stuff because of the testing. Like, we've got limited time now, but we've got this accountability side. How, as a superintendent, do you prioritize SEL pre-COVID and post-COVID? What does that look like? What does that look like throughout your district?
So relationships is everything. To me, relationship is everything. If people don't support you and they really know that you care about them, they won't do the heavy lifting. And so I'll talk a little bit about the difference between power and authority when it comes to leadership. So you have the authority by given your title. You're the school principal, you're the classroom teacher, you're the superintendent of a district, and you have the authority to do pretty much anything in mandating things within your district. But people with authority have a title that's bestowed upon them, but they haven't earned the right and the respect of that community. Now, shift to power. Power comes from leadership that people are willing to walk with you. They will walk behind you. They will walk in front of you. They will protect you. They will support you. They will respect you because they know you will do the exact same thing for them. I'm so proud to say that if you asked any staff member, any family member within the Greenfield community, if I cared about them and if I made sure that I tended to their needs before I asked them to do the academics, they would unequivocally say yes. And that I take incredible pride in because I love them. Like, I love them for doing everything that it takes. I say a lot of things like, we go the extra mile because it's never crowded. Going that extra mile, people do the minimum standard oftentimes, but they don't go the extra. We do extra. And so someday I'll write a book about, it's all the little things, it's all the small things that we do. I take the time to read stories to kids, and we have them on our YouTube channel. I take the time to write a birthday card to people who we miss incredibly, like just little simple things that show people like it's from our heart. And so we leave footprints where we go. I also want us to leave heart prints where we go. Make an impression on the heart so that even after you are gone and things are not as they experience now, as we're moving into a new era and things are going to change, I want them to know that emotionally we tended to those needs and really listening. And one other thing I'll share with you, and how important it is as a leader, is to stay in tune with your labor partners. And I don't call them union leaders or the negotiating team. I call them labor partners. I meet with them weekly, and that is really important. I meet with the president of our unions and their negotiating team every single week, not to negotiate, but to just talk and check in and give them updates. I've been doing that since that following week of March 13th, because I want them to see we are in unison and that we are stronger together, we're better together when we meet the needs of each other. And so we're not getting grievances, we're not getting all these back end things, because we take care of those things up front, and just really tend to the relationship side.
Yeah, well, when you create environments where people want to be and they feel like an authentic part of the process and feel like that they have a voice, many times those things take care of themselves and the issues get worked out
Sure.
because there's a mutual respect there as well. Now, you've
Mhm.
mentioned community a few times, and it is so apparent and so obvious that there's nowhere else in the world that you would rather be. But I also recognize it's not, when working with so many superintendents and district leaders, many times they feel like that community partnerships, community relationships is a struggle. Like it's really just kind of one directional. Talk to us about, how do you really engage your community, your families? You gave some examples earlier from like the buses with Wi-Fi and those kinds of things as well. But
Sure.
what are the types of things you're doing to really have that strong knit community in and outside of school?
Yeah, so community is everything, right? Our parents are our partners and we are stronger together. We can't make these assumptions that, we're going to do everything on our end and not, you know, support the family at home. And one thing that we discovered hugely during the last year is just the equity issue. It's not a one size fits model. We don't have homes in Greenfield that have, the strongest Wi-Fi or even any Wi-Fi. If we didn't give them a device, they weren't going to have that device. And how do I turn it on? And how do I navigate? And where is the portal to enter? And so we quickly learned that our parents need us just as much as their kids need us, and we need them as a partner. And so we quickly put into place, parent workshops. We quickly surveyed them, we called them. And the other thing with surveys is that we didn't do something that was convenient for us. We did things that were convenient for them. So when we pushed out a survey that was digital, we couldn't assume that they would know how to navigate it, right? So we have at every single one of our schools locally funded family community liaisons. So every single school has a person designed to work with our community, as well as we have a family resource center that we just opened up about a year and a half ago here at the central office, to make sure that we receive families as partners and we ask them, what do you need? What's going well? What can we do better? How can we support you? Do you need food? Do you need technology? Do you need paper? Do you need like extra crayons? Our teachers also, I'm going to go back to that, are phenomenal with when the families drive through weekly to get their food. Nutrition program is big. We want to make sure that kids are well fed when they go, when they're here at home and on distance learning. But we also want to make sure that they have stuff to do their job. And so our teachers every week are putting together bags of just the necessities that they need at home. And when they drive through, the kids are coming to our offices and they're picking up the crayons, they're picking up canvases to do like VAPA visual drawings, because we've invested in VAPA in our district as well. And so those kinds of things. We do science kits, hands-on science. They're shooting bottle rockets off in their backyard for fun because their teacher has designed lessons like that. So those little things, as we engage the community, our parents know that our teachers really care about them.
Yeah, such great examples, and appreciate you sharing just those practical strategies
Mm,
that really do work when people know that they're loved, they're cared for, and that you're there to help, and that it's your community. And that using the words ally, I'm picking up on much of the language that you're using to show where your values really are, and I commend you for that
mm,
and the leadership that you truly exhibit. Let me ask you about one more thing, if I could. One of the things that I really respect about the work in Greenfield, here we are, K-8 district, is the work that you've done around some different pathways and different opportunities for students. Because I think sometimes people might look at it and be like, well, that's a high school thing, right? And I know, there's linked learning in California. There's lots of other things where these pathway ideas have come in play. But here you've explored that at the really young levels as well, to allow kids to tap into their interests, their passions, their strengths. So talk to us a little about the evolution of that program. And then, just some advice that you might have on districts that are thinking, hey, that's a good idea, but they don't even know where to start.
yeah. So 4 years ago, when I came back to Greenfield, I really reevaluated. I went on a listening campaign and tried to figure out what are the post-secondary options for our kids. So really being intentional about backwards mapping what those look like. And so I studied the Monterey County trends in the job markets and what were those 4 industries or the top industries that would be something that our kids, if they chose to stay in Greenfield or chose to stay in Monterey County, what would be available to them. And we looked quickly at the medical industry. We quickly looked at the educational industry. We looked at the computer science industry, being so close to Silicon Valley, Google, Apple headquarters. And we looked at the technology and agricultural, which is huge when it comes to ag mechanics and ag technology. And so those were the 4 prevalent industries. So then we said, okay, let's backwards map that. I don't have a high school yet. Post-secondary goes as far as middle school, but it's okay because we're still going to set them up for success. And what you mentioned earlier, a lot of people think that it starts in high school and taking the courses that are A through G approved so that you can get into a really great college, something you do in high school. It's not. You do that from preschool all the way through high school. It's the skill set that you're developing as an adolescent that moves into your youth and that moves into your adulthood. And so I'm very intentional with our team about designing experiences for kids to open their eyes to possibilities. And when I say that, we have invested in robotics here in Greenfield. We've invested in VAPA, visual and performing arts. We've invested in so many different intentional experiences for kids. And so I'll give you an example. Lego education, we do Evolution 3s that are something that all of our kids touch. And this all means all. I don't give it to just the gate kids. I don't give it to the after school program. Every single kid, 100% of them touch it in their class. And so we start with some really simple robotics designs in preschool, then first grade. And every year we build on those skills so that when they do have options to choose their middle school elective, here's what they're choosing from: medical detectives, robotics, green architecture and design. They're choosing digital animation. They're choosing ethnic studies if they're, linguistic. So those are the options that our kids now have in our middle school. 4 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to say that. We had a very different, kind of elective wheel that were keeping kids down. And so it was like an extended studies or like a study hall type of thing, but no rigor. And what our kids have told us is that they want hands-on experiences. They want to collaborate. They want to talk. They want to think about what they're learning. And so that's what we're doing in Greenfield. We're providing those rich experiences that we're getting noticed. I'm super also just really prevalent on social media. I want to just really paint an excellent image of what we have here. And you see our kids, posted every day, every week here in Greenfield, because I'm so proud of them, so proud of them and what they're doing. So, I talked about the disadvantage in terms of a home life, but that is not at all going to determine their success. They are going to be phenomenal. They are phenomenal now. We're just making them even richer with those experiences that we've designed in those sequences.
That's awesome. And it's obvious that you're working so hard to close some of those opportunity gaps for some of the students that, hey, that need it most. And the ultimate compliment I can give is I'm just nodding away over here, smiling as you're listening, as I would put my own babies in your district in a heartbeat, not just because of the opportunity, but when you have leadership that has a mindset and a vision that all means all. And I loved your reflection on that you're not just going to provide, it's really easy to celebrate opportunities for some kids, to walk in and point out one classroom of opportunities that many will never have the opportunity to experience, but you're breaking down those barriers and breaking down those walls. So one final question for you, if I can, my friend. Listening to this, we'll have many, many viewers that are all over the map, from superintendent colleagues around the country to maybe a first year, fourth grade teacher tuning in of like, how do I lead through the pandemic? So no matter what role somebody has, what's one piece of advice that you'd give a year into the pandemic, looking forward? What's one thing you have for them?
It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay when you're surrounded by people who are going to support you, when you have a team, a collaborative team that is going to make sure that you persevere. And if you're scared, one of our core values is we are not going to let each other fail. And when I asked staff coming back in August, what was one of the core values that really resonated with them? And we have about 12, that we really hold true to our heart. That was the one that the majority went to. We will not let each other fail, Zandra. We are going to tend to each other's needs. We are going to set up the lesson. If one of us knows a little bit more than the other, we're going to take care of that. We're going to give it to you until you can do it on your own. So I want everyone to know that when you have a team, when you have leadership that supports you, anything is possible. And we will do whatever it takes to make sure that our kids succeed here in Greenfield.
That's Zandra Jo Galván, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Zandra, thanks for joining us today and investing the time.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.